Hey there, Tanya here again. I just finished recording this video with Kiron Bondale. Now, this is one you're going to want to listen to the very end, where he shares some timeless wisdom around creating psychological safety on teams. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave us a comment below. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to this episode of Reality Check Conversations. I'm Tanya Cervoni. Today we're talking about psychological safety, what it is, why it matters, and how we can create it. And to have this conversation, I'm joined by Kiron Bondale. Kiron, amongst many other things, is an expert in project management, in team leadership. You can read all about his background and numerous certifications using the link below this video. Kiron, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this chat about psychological safety.
Me too. So maybe we can start, for those who may not be familiar with the term, by just simply defining it and helping us understand what happens if our team doesn't have it.
Yeah, so let me actually start with a story. For those of you who are kind of my age, or maybe just a little bit younger, you may remember back in March of 1977, there was a pretty famous air disaster in Tenerife in the Canary Islands. And there was two 747s that collided on the runway. Over 580 casualties. It's still the world's worst civilian air disaster. And the reason behind that, when they started to trace the cause, was that within the cockpit of the KLM airline, there was not this concept of psychological safety. There was a very senior captain. The pilot was a very senior officer. And for whatever reason, he decided that he was going to take off, even though he had not received the green light, as it were, from the control tower. And his crew within the cockpit was concerned about this. And if they had felt psychologically safe, someone would have spoken up. But because they were somewhat, I guess, awed or in fear of the senior leader, they said nothing. Even though they knew internally it probably wasn't safe to take off. The KLM pilot took off and this massive disaster ensued. If we compare that to the miracle on the Hudson in 2009, when Sully was able to successfully land that plane on the Hudson River, what was interesting is Sully was not the pilot in charge at the moment when the birds hit the engines. It was his co-pilot, Skiles, who was in charge at the time. But what's really interesting is when Sully said, "Take over, I'm going to take over," Skiles didn't throw any fuss. He didn't say, "Hey, I'm in charge," anything like that. It was a very seamless transition. And that's a great example of psychological safety at play. They were able to express concern, vulnerability, take control without ego getting in the way. We all know about physical safety. When we're working on a project team on a construction site, we got to wear our hard hats. We got to wear our boots. Psychological safety is a little bit deeper. Team members require a safe space, or they want to feel safe so that they're willing to take risks, to be able to make mistakes without fear of repercussion, to be authentic, to express vulnerability, to state assumptions that they might be making. That is so key, because if we feel somewhat repressed, then we hide that information to ourselves. And for everybody that's ever studied project management, you'll know that assumptions, if you flip them around, can turn into risks. And if we don't state our assumptions, if we are sort of putting up this facade of confidence or of being all-knowing, and we don't say, I really don't know, we might be putting our projects at risk. On top of that, psychological safety helps teams experiment. Google did a tremendous amount of research into this, a project called Project Aristotle, where they found out that one of the key underpinnings of a successful high-performing team was psychological safety. Teams that were going to be more creative or innovative expressed higher levels of psychological safety.
That really brings it to life. Thank you. And you walk the whole spectrum from how it can impact actual physical safety, as in the stories you shared, but also on the other end when you're talking about innovation, collaboration, and all of that, which we all need more of. So for those of us who are not only leaders, but perhaps leading in a more remote virtual environment right now that could be new to us, what do we need to be thinking about in order to make sure that we're building the psychological safety?
Absolutely. I like to think of it as a three-step model. Plan it, champion it, live it. So let's start with plan it. We all know it's a great practice to have kickoff meetings. And when you're working in a virtual mode, let's say you're a project manager of a brand new team, you've never worked with these people before, the kickoff meeting is even more crucial. That's an opportunity to have everyone share their fears and doubts about this project that they're all going to undertake. It's also an opportunity for the project manager or the leader to help the team develop their own working agreements, especially as it relates to psychological safety. So for example, the leader could say things like, we're all going to run into situations where something may not be going the way we think, or we've got that feeling in the pit of our stomach. How do we want to deal with that? They can start to have those types of conversations with the team and have them come up with ground rules for how they're going to work through that. The next step is to champion it. By championing it, what I mean is leaders can make safety a regular topic of discussions at team events. So for example, if you're having weekly team meetings, or maybe you're doing retrospectives if you're following more of an agile type of life cycle, then maybe bring up the topic of, when was there ever an instance during this last week where somebody didn't feel safe to say something? Come on. Straight talk only. Let's bring it out in the open. Try to encourage people to speak their minds. But also, they can champion it by recognizing team members who are actually living psychological safety, who are holding each other accountable and not being afraid to express their concerns. They can recognize those team members. Living it, though, is the most important thing. As with everything else around behavior change, if leaders don't model the behaviors that we want our team members to follow, they're not going to follow them. So that means we need to create safety ourselves during the meetings that we facilitate. Let's say there's a senior stakeholder that comes into the room and for whatever reason, they say something that creates a lack of safety in the environment. It's our role as the team facilitator or the meeting facilitator to kind of set the record straight, to kind of say, hey, let's take this offline. We're trying to keep a safe environment for everybody. That really wasn't appropriate. Make it clear that it's a safe environment. Set those ground rules at the beginning of the meetings. It's also important to have those challenge behaviors which don't enable psychological safety. So if you're witnessing an interaction with team members that's creating a not safe environment, don't try to play the, I don't want to be perceived as the bad guy or bad gal. Get in there, inject yourself, say, hey, we need to keep this a safe environment. Let's let every party have their say. Let's see how we can work through this. So that's so important because psychological safety does not happen overnight. It's set in the context of the team and it happens one day at a time. And just like trust, it takes a while to develop, but it can take sort of one ignorant moment or neglectful moment to destroy it.
That is so well said. And I think it takes a considerable amount of courage. So I love that last point around leaders modeling it, because if we have the courage to do that, it enables our people to respond in kind. Those are really excellent. If you could leave, just in terms of wrapping this up, if you could leave our audience with a final thought or piece of advice or wisdom, maybe something you learned the hard way, I don't know, related to this topic, what would it be?
Absolutely. So many of us are working in whether it's departments, organizations, maybe we have a people manager that doesn't help us feel psychologically safe. We don't feel psychologically safe, or maybe it's just the prevailing culture of the organization that we're in. That's fine. Sometimes we call those toxic environments. Whatever the case might be, that we should never use that as an excuse to not build psychologically safe environments for our team members. We got to think about our role as team leaders or as project leaders or as people managers as trying to create that eye in the of the hurricane for our team members, a place where they can feel safe. So who cares what's going on outside? My role is to keep you safe so you can be the best that you can be.
Thank you so much for that. And just the topic of safety inside of this environment that we're living right now is particularly valuable. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share all that with us.
Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks. And this wraps up this edition of Reality Check Conversations. Be sure to share this video if you got something of value and to subscribe to our channel so you can receive future episodes. Thank you for watching.